Hey freaks, it's JJ. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I talk a lot about rock and metal music, and I talk about the stories that go behind some of my favorite concept albums. And if you're not new to this channel, you probably already know how much I love concept albums, so I thought I would do a list of my top 10. So here we go. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already to get notified when I put out other content such as this. And also don't forget to join my Metalhead community, which is my mailing list. Link to that will be down in the description. I just recently sent out an email talking about my experience at Mudvayne reunion. So if you want to hear how that went and my opinions and thoughts on the interesting event that it was, then go ahead and subscribe to my newsletter down in the description. Anyway. So, side note, I'm going to forewarn you here, if you wanted to play a drinking game, you could take a shot every time I say the word fantastic, because I say that a lot here, be prepared. Also, you could take a drink every time I say, if you want to watch my video on it, blah, 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 because I also say that a lot. Sorry. We're going to start off with number 10, and number 10 is, This Is No Fairy Tale by Ingrid. And I have this album, but I can't find it, and I didn't have time to go, searching the house for it, so I have it somewhere, but I'll just throw a picture up somewhere over here. Anyway, this album is on this list because the storyline is so fantastic. I mean, I love Ingrid just, as a band in general. They're one of the few black metal bands that I can actually get down with right now. I'm still trying to get into, the black metal scene. I'm not quite there yet, and I'm still, only a few black metal bands. But Ingrid is the shit, because their storytelling is just fantastic. So, if you haven't heard This Is No Fairy Tale, I suggest you give it a listen. I also did a whole video talking about the story that goes behind it, but you don't really need to watch the video to understand the storyline. It's laid out really plainly in the lyrics. So, it's basically a version of Hansel and Gretel, but it's extremely, extremely dark and twisted version of Hansel and Gretel. And it is dark and disgusting and disturbing, and I love it. So I believe it definitely deserves to be on this list. I give it a 10 out of 10 as far as storyline goes. Coming in at number 9 on this list is Still Life by Opeth. I love Opeth, and I feel like this album just encapsulates that dark, kind of almost gothic feel to the storyline. I love it when the music really captures the theme of the story, and I feel like it's done extremely well in this album. You definitely get that, almost like this Wuthering Heights, dark, romantic story, which is one of my favorite classic books of all time, so maybe another reason why I like this album. And again, yeah, I did a video on that if you guys want to check it out. So, and how Opeth has this balance of heaviness and lightness to it, and I love how that balances out into this, gothic masterpiece in this album. Not gothic as in goth music, but gothic as in the old original meaning. Coming in at number 8, which I do own this album, but I think my sister has it, so I don't currently have it. But number 8 is The Last Stand by Sabaton. And I mean, everything they do is fantastic, but this album in particular is particularly fantastic. And I don't think I've talked about Sabaton enough on this channel. I actually do want to go through and talk about some of their concept albums because they have fantastic concept albums. The Last Stand is all songs having to do with battles where there was a really epic last stand and some kind of show of heroism, and also maybe, tragic endings for these brave and heroic people in history. So it's just every song in there is just a hit. I think music-wise, it's just a 10 out of 10. It's such a good album beginning to finish, and I love the way that they tell their stories. Sabaton has such a empowering way of telling these amazing war stories that I really can get down with. So that is why I had to definitely include Sabaton in this top 10 list. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to do some videos on Sabaton albums and go in depth about some of the real life battles that the songs are about. I'll definitely do it, but if you let me know down in the comments, I'll make it happen sooner. At number 7, we have The Silver Scream by Einstein Kills. I love this album, and also I've been on a really big Einstein Kills kick. I recently saw them for the very first time at Incarceration Fest a couple weekends ago, and it was so fun. So The Silver Scream is all about classic horror movies, and I'm really excited because they are coming out with part 2 to this album, which is the Hollywood something, I don't know, it's part 2, which they've already released 3 fantastic singles. So I'm really excited to hear that and then talk to you guys about it. I haven't done a full video dedicated to this album, mostly just because it's very straightforward. For the most part, it's really obvious what the song is about, because they include enough that, you know, the casual listener can understand, okay, this song is about Friday the 13th, or this song is about Nightmare on Elm Street. It's really pretty obvious, and they include a lot of detail in there that, you know, you may not even pick up at the first listen. It takes you a few listens to really get the intricacies of like everything that they include in the lyrics fits perfectly into some element of the movie, and I think that attention to detail is one of the things that I really appreciate personally. At number 6, we have Deloused in the Comatorium by the Mars Volta. So this one is an album that has crawled up my favorite list very quickly, because I only started listening to the Mars Volta like maybe 6 months ago, and this album is so good. It's the story that goes behind it is like just like an acid trip. It's the best way I could explain it. And there's a whole like short book PDF that goes along with it for, like, you know, the diehard fans to read, and it is such a crazy story. And it only like makes the music make more sense to you, because the music is already kind of surreal in that you have to like suspend disbelief in order to really engross yourself in the music. And so having this kind of crazy like nightmare / acid trip of a story that goes along with it just really takes you on this crazy journey, and it's so unique, and like the both the music and the story is so incredibly unique that I just understand why people are so in love with this album, because it is fantastic. And I think the Mars Volta community is also really awesome. I've been invited by a couple of people to hopefully soon do a Mars Volta podcast with a bunch of people all over the world, a bunch of dedicated fans, and I'm really excited, looking forward to that, and I'll let you guys know sometime in the future whenever that we get around to actually doing that. Yeah. Just it's fantastic. Just trust me and listen to it if you haven't. And if you have already listened to it, then join me. Just put down in the comments how much you love this album and this band, and just gush about it. It's, you know, it's what we do here apparently, and use the word fantastic way too many times. Whatever. Anyway, if you want to watch the video on me trying to explain the crazy story that goes behind it, then feel free to watch that up here, wherever I link that at. And in spot number 5, we have Vaxis Act 1, The Unheavenly Creatures by Coheed and Cambria. You all knew this was coming. You knew there'd be a lot of Coheed on this list, which there is. So I feel like when I first listened to it, I wasn't 100% in love with it, but Coheed has a way of just somehow albums just grow on me, or just the longer I listen to them. So the storyline for this album is beautiful as well, and it's more, I feel like, more intricate, to the point that I think it could be served well as a comic book, but at the same time, like the coffee table book that has, you know, just the pictures and the prose story is also fitting as well. Storyline is one of my favorites for Coheed and Cambria, and I'm really excited to see where it goes, and I'm really excited that it's going to be a pentology, in that, you know, it definitely left us off wanting more, and so I'm excited to see where it goes. One of the reasons why I really love this story is because it just started and it's not yet finished, and so I think that kind of anticipation of wanting to know what comes next in the storyline is one of the things that really draws me to this album. If you want to hear me talk more about Coheed and Cambria, I have a whole playlist where I talk about how much I love them, so check that out if you're one among the fence. Coming in at spot number 4, again we have Coheed and Cambria, and we have Good Apollo on Burning Star 4. This is my favorite of the Amory Wars comic books, and I feel like by the time we get to Good Apollo and Burning Star 4, Claudio has really learned how to tell a compelling story in comic book format. I feel like, although I do love a Second Stage Turbine Blade and In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3, I think by the time we get to Star 4, it's really fleshed out a little bit more. You can tell that he's spent more time creating this dynamic between the characters and fleshing out the storyline, and getting all those pieces to fit together pretty well. And so the storyline's beautiful, and the music is just, obviously, it's, I think, probably their most popular album, so for good reason, because it's fantastic, and it's the album that I first listened to, first time I heard them, so this has some nostalgia factor to it, which is why I love that album so much. Anyway, moving on, because I don't want to keep talking about Coheed, because I feel like I do that too much on this channel. Okay, and in spot number 3, no concept album list would be complete without Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. Another one of those albums that is just fantastic beginning to finish. It just, every song is a 10 out of 10, every song is a hit, and the storyline is tragic, and it's action-packed. It's just a classic. I mean, you can't put on this album and not finish listening to it. You have to listen to the whole thing as soon as you turn it on. It's that compelling. So, yes, Queensryche, hands down, deserves to be on this list. They are one of the big 3 in pioneering this progressive metal genre. Definitely, they deserve to be on this list because this album is just amazing. And I think is one of those that can stand the test of time and will never, forget about, because it's that good. And in spot number 2, we have Crack the Sky by Mastodon. I love this album, not only because the music is so progressively beautiful. The soundscapes that they create on this album are just unlike any other. Even though I do really love the way the band has kind of taken their style in a slightly different avenue than from the Crack the Sky days. I don't think they've been able to create like a soundscape that is as moving as Crack the Sky. And I think a lot of that has to do with the storyline, being that it was inspired by a real person and someone, very close to the band. So if you want to hear more about that, feel free to watch my video on it, but it's heartbreaking because it's about a real person, and I think it just touches home. Storyline wise, I think it really just touches home because it is representative of something real, and that's also another reason why Deloused in the Comatorium I think is very moving, because it too is about a real person, and it's also a tragedy. And I think the way that this album is written is kind of a way to grieve and express, the feelings of loss and trying to find yourself in the midst of losing someone important to you. And so that is very apparent in this album, I think, and I think what really pushes the music to have an added layer to it that really moves you when you listen to it. Okay, sorry, enough of my TED Talks about life and death and stuff. Okay, and spot number 1, in spot number 1, my favorite concept album of all time. You probably could already guess it, but it is Afterman, Ascension, and Descension by Coheed and Cambria. I count this as one album since it's a split album, but the storyline is one single story, so I count it as one. And because I don't want to split it up, because I don't want to have to decide between the two, because they're both fantastic. This is my favorite concept story of any concept album of all time. The storyline is so heartbreaking that, like, when Gravity's Union comes on, if you know what the story's about, you can't not just, like, feel that right in the feels. It, like, punches you in the gut. It's so moving, and every song on there is absolutely 10 out of 10 in my opinion. Obviously biased because I'm just a huge Coheed fan nerd, and just every song is moving, every song it has like this crazy emotion that just moves you, and it goes with the storyline that is beautiful and tragic, and I don't know, I feel like I can just relate to it, even though it's like a science fiction fantasy storyline. I feel like I relate to it. Anyway, that's me gushing about Coheed again, I'm sorry. But I think a lot of you are also Coheed fans, so not sorry. Anyway, I'll link stuff wherever if you guys want to learn more about the stories that go behind these concept albums, which I cover. I cover a lot of these albums in videos talking about the stories that go behind them and kind of explaining them step by step. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'll link them somewhere up here or over here or down in the description. I'll link them everywhere, whatever. Obviously, this video is just my personal opinion, and these are my favorite concept albums, but I would love to know your personal favorite concept albums. So please let me know down in the comments what your favorite concept albums are. I'd love to hear your opinion. So don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. And again, if you want to join my metalhead community, go down to the link in the description and sign up for my monthly newsletter where I send out random metalhead stuff that is important. So you should subscribe to it. Anyway, sorry for this video is weird. I'm weird today. I'm sorry. Anyway, thanks for watching, freaks. Until next time.